What's up, guys? I got a cool one for you today. We're getting ready to start demo on this locomotive here behind me. Let's go walk around it, take a closer look, and I'll show you some of the equipment we're going to use. Alright, so the plan is to completely cut up this locomotive, and we are going to cut everything off the top deck first. So we're going to cut the cab off and this whole front structure, also the rear structure, and once it's down to basically a flat deck, the company that owns the locomotive is going to come in and pick it up and pull these sets of axles out from under it. There's some parts they want to save. We're probably going to cut up the axle frames, but they want to keep the axles and the wheels and the motors and all that stuff. They've already removed the engines out of the locomotive and all the fluids have been drained. So basically all we've got to do is just start cutting on it and chop it up into little pieces to where we can load it and get it out of here. Let's go inside and take a look. All right, let's go ahead and climb up into the cab of this thing. All right, so they've stripped any parts out of here that they can keep or reuse for their other locomotives. Mostly electrical stuff is what they took, the control panel, all that stuff. But we're gonna strip the rest of the wire out of here as we go, just to kind of upgrade that and get the value of the copper. And then back here on the deck of the train, same thing. All that thick copper wire. This here is all copper wire that runs down to the motors, and up here's where I'm guessing the engine sat. I believe this unit had two engines. One would have been here, and then the second one was back here. And like I said, they kept all this stuff for their other locomotives, anything that was good. And then up top here are some radiators, so we'll also pull those out as we demo everything. But that's pretty much it. I'm gonna jump back down. I'm gonna show you how thick some of the steel is down there. You can see, I don't know, that's maybe 2-inch thick plate is what that's made out of. And basically this entire deck is made out of plate anywhere from about 1 inch thick up to about 3 inches thick. So we've got our excavator with our shear head on it, and we're going to use that to cut off the cab and any of the other thinner sheet metal type stuff on top that it can handle. And then once we get it to that point, everything else will pretty much have to be torched after that. And then we've also got a skid steer here with a grapple bucket. That way we can just move stuff around and grab pieces and move them after we cut them off. And then that tote there is just full of water. That way we can wet stuff down before we start torching, or if we have some little patches of grass catch on fire or anything, we can go ahead and put that out. So you can see the main structure. I don't know how thick that is, maybe 3.5, possibly even 4 inches thick. And then about 1.5 inch thick plate up here. And I think on the other side, I could see this wall was about 1 inch thick. So we're gonna have our work cut out for us on torching, and you can see that 3-inch thick plate runs all the way across. So it's one solid 3-inch plate the entire length of the locomotive. And then right here you can see these are the motors they're gonna keep, and I believe they're keeping the entire axle assemblies. But if I understand correctly, these frames they do not want, so they're gonna pull those out, get the parts off that they want, and then leave everything else here for us to cut up. That's pretty much it. It's gonna be a lot of weight because everything is so thick, and it will take us several days to get everything cut up. But realistically, we probably could be in and out of here in a week or so. So we'll see what happens. It'll take a little longer than that because we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna take everything off the top deck first, and then they're gonna come in and do their work. And so once we get that done, we've got to wait on them, and then as soon as they're finished, we'll be back to torch everything up. But we're gonna get started, and we'll see how this goes. pretty much got this entire side cut up. We gotta move the excavator to the other side to get the rest of it off. He's cutting the bolts off the electrical panel, that way it's easier to pull the copper wire out. And then he's gonna cut the last few bolts that are holding this structure on, and we're hoping we can just push it all over in one piece rather than cut it up into small pieces like over here. So the excavator is doing a good job. It's just not quite a big enough machine to be able to really manhandle this thing. So we just have to cut little pieces off as we go, but it's definitely working. Battery's almost dead. Let's go quick.
18%.
Oh, 18%? So we've actually decided to take this thing out in big pieces. So we're gonna chop this main frame down into 3 chunks. So basically the front section, the section in the middle, and then that rear section. And we're gonna have a crane come in, load it out onto flatbeds. That way when we get it back to the yard, we're a little more equipped to move this thing around, flip it over, all that stuff. Just if we cut it here all the way down into prepared, we'll just run into more issues with fires, being able to maneuver it, and then we have to load up a bunch of small pieces rather than just 5 or 6 large pieces. You can see he's cut all the way through on this bottom plate. It's about 3 inches thick. He's got that cut all the way across, so the only thing holding it is the top plate, which is about 1.5 inches thick, plus some other stuff still. But you can see how heavy that thing, it's actually already sat down on the ground on the right side. And you can see on the side of the frame, that thing's so heavy in the middle, it has bowed it down. And if that tank wasn't under the bottom, that thing probably would have bent even further and would be kind of a V shape. So you can see we've already got that side cut. It just needs to fall the rest of the way down. And it's hard to tell from this angle, but as he cuts that bottom, the bottom plate, it's so heavy that the top deck actually starts to bow and sag. Getting ready to load this second large piece. You can see we got it in the air. We already loaded the first. After these big pieces, we just got the smaller pieces, and we'll just get the stuff chained down and be ready to go. On this first truck, we got the two sets of trucks or axle frames, whatever you want to call them. So that's one flatbed load. And then on these three flatbeds, we've got basically a third section of the frame of the locomotive That center section is the one with the fuel tank, and then this last one is actually the nose where the cab and everything was sitting. That piece was very heavy, which is why we had to cut off the bottom side of it there. That's why it's not sitting up in the air like that one is. When he went to lift it with the crane, it was definitely heavier than expected, so we went ahead and cut that off. And then the last one has got this rear structure and the front, or I'm gonna call it the bumper, off that piece we had to cut off. So this load and the load with the axles or with the trucks is relatively light, and I'm gonna pull these out of here first, and then I'll come back and get the locomotive itself. But that's pretty much it. Now we just got to truck back to the yard. So we started torching up the locomotive here on the yard today to get it down to prepared sizes. You can see that pile of stuff that's already cut up with one of these track frames. He's just piling it up and separating out the springs. If we look over here at these pieces that he cut, you can see how thick that thing is, because it's completely solid. So we're gonna get these cleaned up, finish that one up, and then we're gonna unload the trailers over there, and we'll torch all those up right here as well. Let's take a closer look at the stuff we've cut up off the locomotive so far, and then once we get the rest of this cut up and moved out of the way, we're going to have the crane come in and set off these big pieces, so we still have the 3 main sections of the locomotive on the trailers. Once we get those set off, he's going to torch those up as well. So you can pretty much see all of those axle frames, and then the other structures and all that stuff that were on the first 2 trailers has already been cut up. I showed you already how thick some of this stuff was while he was torching it, but now that it's in the pile, you can really see some of that stuff's probably 12 inches thick, maybe 14 inches on that big stuff like back there. So now all of this is prepared and ready to go straight to the steel mill. This pile right here doesn't look very big, but there's probably 60 to 70,000 pounds right there, just because those axle frames were so heavy by themselves. And then this is the rear structure where all of the radiators were. He's getting ready to cut that up into small prepared pieces tomorrow morning, but he went ahead and cut out all of the radiators that were there. And so let me take a look at these brass and copper radiators that were in there. So this is one side, and you can see this thing is about 14 inches thick or so, and maybe about 15 feet long. So same thing tomorrow, he's going to cut off all of this steel housing all the way around it, and then we'll weigh up just the brass and copper radiators. I have no idea what those are going to weigh. There's 2 of them identical to this, the other one's over there on the other side. My guess would be probably 3,000 to 4,000 pounds total, but we'll find out tomorrow. That's pretty much it so far. Well, that's pretty much a wrap for the locomotive project. This little pile of steel is all that's left. This is about one semi-trailer load worth that we're getting ready to load up and deliver to the mill. All the rest of it's already been delivered. Overall, the project went pretty well. We learned a lot. That's the first locomotive we've ever actually done. I think if we were to do another one, we could do it a little bit quicker now that we know what we're getting ourselves into. I skipped through a lot of him actually just torching this stuff up because it's just redundant. He just, you know, stands there and keeps torching until it's all down to small pieces. But overall, I think it was a pretty cool project. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if anything else like that comes up, I'll be sure to do another video.